Thank you, Shunya, for the teaching. My question is not so related so much to the teaching. It's something different. It's about symptoms or diseases and their meaning or purpose. So in my 20s, I read a book, Disease as a Path. One could say as a path to a self. To the self was the intention of the author. So I already took in every disease as a kind of meaning. But I feel there must be some difference, or let's say you have a symptom, or it wants to give a message to you, right? And sometimes you get the message, and the symptom disappears. But there's also like a disease where you have just to go through to, which you can't really heal, or I don't know. Is there a kind of distinction between the meaning of the symptoms, diseases? And how to understand it and how to have a better healing.
Mm-hmm. I've discovered that all of these books that try to tell you what the meaning of symptoms are wrong, okay? Because it's a far more subtle level of understanding that is required. And there isn't a single answer, because the symptom that each individual gets will depend on their level of consciousness, not simply on what does a symptom mean. So the same symptom for someone at chakra 4 will have a very different meaning than if they have that symptom at chakra 1 or 2, right? Or if they're at 7. Right? Because you can have symptoms and be a liberated being. It doesn't mean there's some message for you, but it does mean that teleologically, that the will of God has given this assignment to you to be able to express something in the world that may be important for others. Not at all a message to yourself. It may be a message to many others. So you cannot say objectively what a symptom means in general. It's always very specific, and it always depends not just on karmic factors of the past, but teleological factors of the future and vertical factors of the necessity for learning something now that will either take one to a higher state by resolving a certain message that may either be coming from the subconscious mind, but also possibly from the superconscious, and usually both. So the symptom is not a thing. It's not really an object. And everyone will relate to their symptom in a very different way, and often it will depend on how that symptom came, when it was triggered, what was its function when it first occurred, what were the secondary gains of the symptom that might cause that symptom to become chronic, let's say, for the ego consciousness. There are so many variations and nuances that will depend on the not only the level of consciousness that you're on, but the trajectory of your consciousness, and your willingness to attune to the frequency that is transmitting the information that actually produces that symptom through the various sheaths of consciousness, from the Vijnanamaya kosha to the Manomaya kosha to the Pranamaya kosha to the Annamaya kosha. At different levels, there are also different symbolic markers and meanings that one may follow, like the breadcrumbs of Hansel and Gretel through the forest, you know. And you have to understand that a symptom is not simply a physical disease. You can have a karmic symptom by having certain glitches with other people. That's as much of a symptom as a somatized one. Or you can have a symptom of a certain kind of recurring attitude that produces a certain kind of recurring suffering. it's a mental disorder, not necessarily a physical disorder. And often it is the mental that will even overflow into the physical. So we have to understand how incoherent, how self-attacking, how conflicting are the drives within the operating system of the consciousness at that point. And what are the possibilities of the symptom creating a rupture of that condition and allowing a free entrance of a new level of information that can provide liberation from that state into a higher state. So every symptom is also a blessing, and it is a pathway, but one has to understand that pathway in the most subtle and internal way by listening to one's heart and not trusting any objective beliefs about what a symptom means, because no one knows. Even if someone knows what their own symptom means, it doesn't necessarily they'll know yours or anyone else's. And it's only when we are attuned to and resonate with that God consciousness that can recognize the perfection of that symptom and not take it as a flaw, or I'm being punished by karma, or why have you done this to me, God, and feeling bereft and abandoned, right? So none of that is true. And although the symptom may feel like a crucifixion, remember that famous crucifixion of Jesus was not because he sinned. It was because he did not sin. And it was that freedom that gave the ability to go through an ordeal that would be uplifting for the many. And there is a certain way in which a symptom is connected to a sacrifice that is important for us to make in life. And if we have not made it voluntarily, it may have to be made involuntarily through that means. But it is always a gateway to an opening to a new level of acceptance and of release of the contraction around a symptom, so that even if there is pain, there does not have to be suffering. And it's when there is that refusal to suffer because one is accepting of the will of God unconditionally, then one will receive that as a blessing, which will either release the symptom itself, or it will make it clear that that symptom is present in order to be able to influence the destiny of the character through time in a way that will prove to have brought it to an accurate, ultimate self-revelation, and a revelation of a situational, let's say, a formation of consciousness within the morphogenic field greater than the individual node of consciousness that will bring benefit to all beings, because we are all interconnected in that field. And so you have to have the most wide open possible understanding of what a symptom could mean in order to receive that information from God.
Okay, thank you. That was quite
Sorry
a complex
you asked me,
answer. Just one thing stood out for me when you mentioned that, let's say, glitches in the field, in your communication or in your interactions could produce a physical symptom.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if you are in trouble with a certain person or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very common.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But not all symptoms are caused that way.
Yeah, but
that's
okay.
why. But yes, that's one way symptoms arise.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also many other ways. For example, one could have an allergy to cats and dogs and pets. And what that allergy may do may keep you from being too attached to a pet and be able to develop spiritually in a way you might not have if you had been able to divert all of your attention to the care of pets that most people do. And if you can understand that can be a direct blessing, then you may not be so eager to remove the allergy. They are all psychosomatic, granted, but they are also blessings and can help guide one's life in a direction that it would not otherwise have taken.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I have a very interesting symptom. I have a swollen foot, and we had recently someone else here with swollen foot.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So,
Which,
do you have a guess on that?
doesn't mean that your swollen foot is the same as the other person's, right? Or has the same meaning. But yes, clearly there is symbolic meaning to it. I'm not going to address it at the moment, but I will be happy to explore it with you, and I think you should explore it in sessions with an Atmanologist, because it probably has something to do with moving forward on the spiritual path.
Okay.
Right? But I won't speculate beyond that.
It's not so painful anymore.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
You're welcome.